and law enforcement calls this community Felony Flats. So that's the area behind Winco, and it's commonly referred to as Felony Flats, where those apartment buildings, those Hayden City buildings went in, and I talked to people in that community, and they said, yeah, ever since they put those things in, we've had to lock up our chainsaws and lock our front doors, and it's made their quality of life go down. So yes, that was, I appreciate
the issue
the
there
clarification.
though is not just higher density, it's the individuals that are living in those.
Sure.
How they're out.
Absolutely
Different, because I don't know that there's a correlation between high density here, but in that case, there's
sure.
other factors as
There are.
So if I can generalize though, because I'm trying to think about where we are going as a city, and we're projected to be at 36,000 people in 2040, according to KMPO guess or whatever estimate. There we go. That's the word I want. And I guess in general, is this true? Is that the higher density housing we have, the more crime we will have? Is that a true statement?
That has been my experience. Generally, you will have more calls for service in those structures.
So it will
yes.
cost the city more if we have high density?
Generally, yes.
Yes. Okay, now, and another, I watched your video of you, and and towards the end of that video, you said something about impact fees, that you were a proponent of impact fees. Could you explain
Physical
that?
impact studies. So on big developments that are going to have massive populations moving in, I'm talking about 100, 200, 300, 400,000 home developments, then there should be a fiscal impact analysis on what that is going to cost this community in the short run and in the long run. Yes, because for every 250 homes, or for every 1,000 people, I'm gonna need 3 new jail beds. Last construction, they were $90,000. I'm not even gonna get into what they would cost today based on what lumber is. So, but right now, when we did the last construction, they were $90,000 a piece. So for every 250 homes, or every 1,000 people, we're gonna need 3 new jail beds at $270,000, and that's only for construction. That doesn't account for the feeding and the security and the manning of the jail.
So how can we implement that through an impact fee, or is that possible?
Well, that part, you would have to talk to your attorneys and what have you, but as far as a fiscal impact study is what I was recommending. And then how you get to that, to do that. Now, there are some communities that have experienced aggressive growth. The state legislature, and this is another area that I spoke with on Saturday, was the legislatures need to give the city councils and county commissioners the tools they need to combat this. So, huge development going in. Not only do you have your property tax, but you have your infrastructure fees that are going to be divided up between schools, between jails, between highways. So you have a sunset on that. So let's say your cost of $250 per month in your property tax, you have another $250 a month that will sunset in 10 or 12 years, and then that goes away. So some states have adopted the ability to do that to their cities and counties, and that is what I've had a conversation on with many legislators, and that's what I believe is something that should be looked at.
So I had a visit with Chief Riley of Northern Lakes Fire District, and there was new legislation that allows the fire district to collect an impact fee, and that's for capital improvements, not for personnel costs.
Right.
And so what you're saying is it would be nice if the police department or public safety could also collect an impact fee, but that's going to have to be done through the Idaho legislature to approve that. Would you support that?
I would support giving the tools that the cities and counties need, because let's face it, not every county in Idaho is going to grow at the same pace that Hayden is. So you might need a different tool than a county in southern Idaho. So I think that you should have all the tools in your toolbox to be able to address whatever growth that you're having. Because it's going to be different than Shoshone.
Maybe not.
Yeah, that's true, maybe not.
I was gonna say, because they're going somewhere.
Two more items. I just want to tell a story of having coffee with Pierce Clay. Pierce was a deputy at one time, and he was a sheriff. But when he was a deputy, this was back 40 years ago.
I was gonna say,
and now think of this. He was the only deputy on call during a night shift for the whole county. That's the kind of coverage that we had 40 years ago. So that gives you an idea of how we've grown and how we have to adapt. And I agree with, working on changing and adapting to our needs. My last thing, and I just want to enter this into the record and give you a copy of it too, Bob, is I went through several hundred pages of documents today, this morning, about 4 in the morning, because I was out camping over the weekend and I didn't get it done. And it was the monthly reports from Kootenai County on patrol hours, detective hours, calls, accidents, traffic citations, and arrests. And so then I took the year-to-date for each year in December, so I could look at, rather than going from month to month to month to month, I went from year to year to year, and I graphed these. And some of the interesting things, and I'll just highlight them really quickly, is that going from 2010 to 2020, so that is a 10-year period, and in that period we grew 20% based on the more current census. We went from like 13,000 to like 16,000. But patrol hours had a trend line that went up significantly. The calls, and this is for Hayden, just the city of Hayden, didn't have a steep slope, but the trend line was up. And the detective hours had actually a slope that went down. In other words, the number of detective hours. Now, conversely, then I graphed traffic citations. And over time, it had a steep downward. And that kind of goes to what you said, is that wasn't the priority.
Or if you don't have patrol time to be able to address those areas, then you're not going to be able to do it. So,
and then arrests were down slope. And the one increase was on accidents. Now that was what was reported on those monthly. There's other detail you could go into, but the reports I had didn't have all that detail. But I just want to enter that in the record and give you a copy, because I think we need to, at least for me, the world I work in is based on data and trying to figure out the situation. And so I think in negotiating, whatever we negotiate, I think we need to have some good data to be able to communicate with and to establish where we're going and how much it's going to cost us. So I would like to enter that. Maybe if we could get Bob.
That'd be good, yeah, because that's interesting, because we were growing at about 1.5% a year and everything else was trending down.
Can I just see that for a second?
That's yours.
Yeah, and again, all that data came from the sheriff's office.
It's what you provided to us.
Yeah, and
monthly reports. Also, that's interesting, Matt, because so it was a little less than 1.5% annual growth from 2010 to 2020, and we're going to now see 2% or more. What do you put in?
6% on the average.
3% per year. Yeah. So is the high end of it. And so from 2010 to 2020, we only saw about 1.5% a year.
Yeah, I looked at Glenn Marr's number from 16,000 to 36,000. It's a 126% increase. Divided by 20, it's about 6% per year is what he plugged in.
And
it's not how you calculate it.
It's 3.
It's a percent per year, so.
It was a 3. It was a compound.
It's about 3.5 or something at the very high.
It was because I did that. Compound annual was 3. So, Jerry,